There it is.
I am Dave.
And I am Sean. And this is Barstools and Bandtalk.
What we do.
That's what we do.
What a fun night this is going to be, because our good friend Kerry Boyce, part of the RFL Association, hooked us up with these guys. So I feel like I'm too bright. I feel like I'm like Casper the Ghost. Maybe I'm wrong.
No.
But anyhow, it hooked us up with these guys in London, Ontario. Turbosnake is the name of the band, and I'll let Sean bring them on. But I think we're going to have a great time, because these guys were all about 80s rock. And quite honestly, that's kind of where Sean and I are. We're 80s rock guys. So
Yeah, it's, you do this show, and I mean, we've what are we at, 7-8 months now, and it kind of, you forget, the people that you have as part of it. I mean, Kerry's in the States. Douglas Franklin and John and Sam from RFL, they're in the States, and we've made great friends with these people. And I think this is going to be a real fun interview. These guys came on. The second they came on, it's like, holy crap, this is right up our alley.
yeah.
I had a chance to listen to a little bit of their stuff. They are a lot of fun, and happy to have Brian and Eric from Turbosnake on.
Here they are. Look at their hair. I'm so envious. There they are.
What's
Living
up, boys?
color. What up, fellas?
How you doing, boys?
So we were just doing the intro there, and we were talking about how, we're doing this show now for about 8-9 months, and the connection with you guys came from somebody that we've really never met other than online. She's down in the States and absolutely loves you guys. She said, you got to get them on the show. Mm-hmm. She sent me a link to some of your stuff. I was super impressed. Tell us a little bit about what you guys have been doing and how it's been going.
So it all started early pandemic, I guess. I was working on a punk record with our rhythm guitar player, Grant. And for some reason, I was thinking about Ryan here. And we used to play in a cover band together, doing old 80s hair stuff. And I just decided to record a riff and get started on a song, because we'd never done anything original before. No. So I laid down a riff and sent it over to him, and we just started recording that way, and it turned out awesome. And then we went from there, basically. And the first song we did was the One Woman Wrecking Crew. It's the first song on the EP.
It was kind of funny, guys. It was like we were both playing in bands, and when the pandemic hit, it was kind of sort of like, hey, we need something to do while we can't play live anymore. I'm sure you guys know what we're talking about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I had done a couple of original songs before, and Eric fires me this message and says, "Hey, do you want to write an '80s metal album, like some rock?" And like, fucking right, I do. Let's get this going. And it was funny. He sent me this riff, and he's like, "Well, what do you think about this?" And right off the bat, I was hooked. I'm like, "This is awesome." So, and again, it's a very first time I've kind of been going at this. So I sort of struggled with it for a week, because I haven't written a lot of original tunes. And sort of for me one day, this is funny. You boys are Canadian. I was watching hockey, and I think it was Bo Horvat just laid some guy out with a hit. And the guy on TV was like, "That guy is a one-man wrecking crew." And all of a sudden in my head, I was like, I got to write a song called One Woman Wrecking Crew. So he took the riff, and I was like, all right, man, One Woman Wrecking Crew. And it just flooded.
I'd like to meet her.
Yeah, right? And you guys know what I'm talking about, right? When you're all of a sudden a tune just hits you, and it's just away you go. And honestly, man, like, it was, at first I was like, I don't know if I can do this. But ever since then, it's just been awesome for me. I love this. It's such a great way to keep my mind, I'm still into music. It's something I can do. It's awesome. Like, this guy, he's the brainchild.
And you're a bass player. Is that too, Eric? You're playing bass, is that right?
Yeah, my other original bands I'm with, these days I'm playing all upright bass.
Oh, wow.
Other than this project. So, but prior to that, I was always electric bass. And yeah, for our stuff, I record the rhythm guitar parts as well, but we outsource the drums and the lead guitar parts. So.
Right on. Well, technology is so cool now. We have a friend here that's doing a lot of recording, and I've been doing some recording myself with, sending files. And my old band, that I used to play with in the day, they're all up in Ontario, and we've been kind of sharing files. And it's really neat how technology can, allow you to adapt and sometimes get some really cool stuff that you don't have to pay thousands of dollars to record, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, our guitar player is just over in Stratford. It's 45 minutes from here.
Right.
But yeah, we do it remotely. So I basically send him pretty much a finished song, except for like usually backup vocals and his parts, and then he just lays down his guitar parts and then fires me over the DI tracks. I pump him through. I got a Kemper. It's like a virtual guitar amp, and I run him through there and then put him on the track. So it's a great way to work, though.
So what program are you using to record, Eric? What program are you using?
Sonar X3. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's pain in the ass these days. It's crashing like crazy, so I have to back it up all the time. And once we're done this project, I'll have to upgrade or do something with it. But yeah.
I mean, I think we're on the verge right now. If you look at these COVID times, it's such a drag that we can't get together and just jam or play live or whatever. But I mean, I think, and you guys are a perfect example of what's happened there. Like I said, you make lemonade of the lemons that you're given, right? So you've had this opportunity to have some downtime. So you're recording songs, you're playing songs, you're writing songs, which is really cool. I wish there was a technology that you could almost like a virtual concert where it's like real time, but it seems to be that digital age, it doesn't allow you to do that. You almost need to combine analog and digital together so you can actually do that. I wish there was such a program.
Yeah, I've looked into it actually. So I figured there must be a way. We were in discussions talking about jamming with another band I'm in, and I was doing some research to see if it was possible to actually jam live, because we all got like recording equipment and stuff, but it seems like it's not there yet. I guess we got to wait till the internet speeds are faster or something.
10G or something.
Yeah. It's got to be doable at some point. Yeah, I can't wait for that. That'd be great.
So before we came on, we were chatting, and I said, I mean, instantly I see you guys, and for me, Sirius XM does not move off of, channel 39 unless I'm listening to Audie's Boneyard. So we're obviously, we're of like mind in terms of that stuff. Yeah. Eric, you had a really interesting comment. You said it's not hair metal, it's 80s rock, which I actually love, because hair metal kind of, it gives it this connotation that those guys back in the day couldn't play. But give us your impression of 80s rock. I know what mine is, but every time I listen, I'm blown away by the musicianship on some of this stuff.
I guess, what would I call the difference?
Like your influences, I guess.
Yeah, well, basically my influences when we started this band were basically, we were in a 80s hair cover band together. So it's basically just like, when I sit down and write a song, I think I'm going to write a song like Motley Crue today. I want to do a Motley Crue song, or what are the other ones on? Def Leppard.
Def Leppard, Journey, Bon Jovi. You kind of jump all over the map in there.
So I'll hear a track, and basically I want to do something different every time, though. Nothing. I don't want to. So when this album, we do eventually compile all of our songs into a full-length album, it's going to be, every song is going to be completely different from one another. So usually I'm inspired by one song, and I sit down and write a song in a similar vein. And then I fire it over to Ryan, and he takes it his own direction. So, but the difference between 80s rock and hair metal is like an attitude, I guess, you know. But that's the funnest part about it is, we can don these kind of stupid outfits. That really appeals to me. And it's always...
I mean, there's so much you can do too. You can look at the 80s. You can go anywhere from, you look at bands like Aha to Wham, and then you get into bands like Metallica and Megadeth. It was just so diverse, and it's funny. I just appreciate all of it now. You kind of look back at sometimes, you're like, oh man, I remember growing up being like, I hate this band. They suck. And then I look back now, I'm like, they were pretty awesome. Just so many, like, I'm trying to think off the top of my, even like, just to make light of something, like a band like Wham. They had their niche, right?
Yep.
And at the time I remember being like, oh, this sucks. But women loved them, and they knew how to pack a dance floor. And now I look back, now that I'm older in life, and I'm like, you know what, that was pretty awesome what they did. And then I look at things that influenced me when I was growing up. Bands like Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction, huge influence. Def Leppard, Hysteria was a big influence. Bon Jovi, Slippery When Wet. Those were all albums I had to have. I got to throw a shout out to the shirt here. Poison. Small world story here. I went to school with this guy's cousin. We were in grade 5, and this guy shows up with this tape. He was new to our school, and he was a little bit edgy, and he's like, "Hey, man, check out this tape of Poison." And I put it on, and I was like, "Oh, man, this
Look
is
at the cat dragged in. Yeah.
Yeah, look what the cat dragged in." It was the greatest thing I'd ever heard. So then I meet this guy 22 years later, and it turns out this guy who introduced me to rock and roll was his cousin.
Cool.
Small world. Just unbelievable. But
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. It's interesting, Ryan, that you talk about going back and listening to a band, and back in the day, you know, they sucked you. Duran Duran was that band for me.
Yeah.
I happened to be listening to the radio the other day, and a song comes on, and I'm like, I don't ever remember those guys being such players, but it's like, holy crap, they were a good band.
Sean, that's so funny that you say that, man. They didn't do it for me either. And it's now that I listen back to them, I'm like, man, these guys are awesome. Really appreciate the music now.
Yeah.
Well, Sean was fairer than me because I was more into I was like a Rush and Black Sabbath and probably Judas Priest and Iron Maiden. That was my venue. He liked more the LA style. He liked, you know, like he was like bands like Keel and bands like Motley Crue, and I guess Poison weren't even out at that point. But it's like the chicks like those songs. So he was probably smarter than I was, right? Because
I always said that, Dave. You can hang out with the dudes. I'm gonna go where the women are, bud.
Play air guitar with the dudes.
All right. Yeah, that's right. But you know, and it's funny because we had Ron Keel on the show, and he was always a hero of mine. And like, so funny story about that. We get it set up by Douglas from RFL Records, and I send Ron an email, and he goes, "Well, I'm not doing any press right now because I got some stuff coming out. But how about September?" And I said, "Well, what about the 9th? That was my birthday."
Nice.
I told him it was my birthday, and before he comes on, I just want to give a shout out to Sean McKenna. Happy birthday, brother. And I tell you, go back and watch that interview. There is no cooler man than Ron Keel. Yeah. He was I mean, you can tell he loves what he's doing, but what a self-promoter, but not in an offensive way at all.
He could teach us all about self-promotion for sure. Oh my God.
Just amazing. Well, then the other thing, and then I end up, I'm good friends with Dwayne Miller now, who was the drummer in Keel, who we had him on the show. So this is kind of what's coming out of this, you know, these Monsters of Rock things, that the cruises and all that stuff. It's funny how this type of music kind of took a downturn when grunge came out, but it's roared back probably harder than any music form I can think of.
It really has. It's funny. I just finished Sebastian Bach's autobiography last night, and
good.
He made some great points about, you know, they sold 20 million albums with the first 2 Skid Row albums, and then grunge came along and just squashed it. Yeah. And how much those guys were like, "Oh man, Kurt Cobain just killed us." You know, the grunge, I was it was okay, but not my. I was more of an 80s guy myself, and so it was kind of cool to read what he was doing. But he also talks about how difficult it is for music now and rock and roll, and you know, it's kind of really nice to see it. It seems to be making its way back a little bit now. I think people really want to see rock and roll again. They're sick of what's been coming out the last little while, and I don't know if it's me getting older, boys, but I hate the new music.
Yeah.
Well,
I remember my grandma probably hated when my mom played the Beatles. My mom hated it when I played Metallica. And now I hear the new stuff now, and I'm like, it just doesn't do it for me.
Well, I mean, you can definitely hear, you know, that Eddie Vedder kind of influence in a lot of those guys in the 2000s, like, you know, and I mean, I guess I like Pearl Jam, but it's just the whole vibe of, I think the reason why, and the music like that you guys are doing, it's upbeat, it's peppy. You don't feel like you want to, you know, jump off the roof of your house. You just want to go out and party and raise a beer and have a good time, right? And that's, I think, the difference between that stuff and what we grew up listening to.
Right. And I think that's kind of what the world misses a little bit. And that's sort of what we're shooting for.
Right on.
Everything's been pretty negative for a while in music. And like, I remember hearing Brett Michaels in an interview once saying something about that too, going, you know what? We used to sing about partying and chicks and everything was awesome. And now Kurt Cobain comes along and he's like, man, life sucks. And I think everybody's ready to kind of lift your spirits a little bit again. And that's sort of what we're shooting for.
You know, you're so right there, because it's like what the world needs right now is just a little positivity, you know, and I'm sorry, but and maybe I'm a little bit stuck in the 80s, but I kind of am. I haven't really liked anything since 1989. I mean, like, I really haven't. It got kind of just so dark and deep, and I don't know. You just want to shoot yourself. It's like, you know.
You're right, Dave.
And I don't even know what was recorded from 2000, 2010. That whole decade is gone for me. I don't even know. I can't believe that 1980 was 40 fucking years ago. It freaks me out a little bit, right? But it does, you know, and you're so right with what you guys are doing right now. There'll be a resurgence of that music, and if you're pure to it and you're true to it and you represent it, you know what? It'll sell. I think it'll sell.
Well, we're hoping. You know, it's we're enjoying it so far.
Yeah.
Like again, something to keep our minds into music while this is going on, and we've really been enjoying the ride so far, to be honest with you guys.
So in terms of what you guys are doing, so are you guys signed to anybody right now? Or are you working on that, or what's the deal?
No, not yet. So we've put out our first 3-song EP. We got another 6-song coming out. I think we're tentatively shooting for Valentine's Day, but we'll see how things progress. And then we're gonna record another 5-ish songs and compile them all into one full length. And at that point, I want to shop it around a little bit, fire it off to some labels, get some physical CDs printed, and promo pics and everything, get some press kits. If people still do that, I'll have to look into that. I don't even know.
So
Well, I'll tell you
do you have
this,
a full band now, or no? Do you actually have a full band?
Yeah, we got our guys together. We haven't
cool.
had a band practice, but we do everybody sort of individually at this point. But you know, we don't really plan on gigging till at least the summer, I think. So
That's unprecedented times, so who knows, right? So
yeah,
but we just we're going into full lockdown here in Ontario for at least the next month. I don't know how you guys are doing out on the East Coast, but things aren't great right now. But
I'm sorry.
it is what it is, right? You know, hey, Christmas time we'll hang out with the family, and hopefully I get my Red Ryder BB gun and everything will be okay.
That's right. Well, I mean, just to tell you guys, so we've got a situation here where the powers that be that are shutting everything down, and it's not as bad as what you guys are going through, but the bars and the restaurants have been told for the last 3 weeks they can't open. So nobody's making any money, and everybody that's making the decisions is not consulting with anybody. They're just making the decisions and saying, suck it up. So we've actually, if you get a chance, go on our page and sign our petition, because we're trying to get a little bit of a meeting with some government people to say, hey, you know what? Forget about, meet with the frontline people that are actually going through it. Don't meet with the association that pays money to do it. But what I was going to say is, if you guys are so willing, I'd love to send your stuff to RFL, because they are great people and I think they'd really like it.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
Appreciate that, guys. Thanks.
No, it's awesome. And you're
Ryan,
at the right place too. Like, you're in London, Ontario. Like, you think about the history from around that area where you're at right now. You have Svengali, who's around that area. Brighton Rock's around that area. You go back a little further. Now it's funny. Now, Eric, you talked about a punk record you're working on. Teenage Heads from around that area. There's a lot of really great talent in that area. Like, and so you're in the right spot. And I don't know what it is about that area of Ontario, but it's like it drives some really cool rock music. And we're big fans of that shit.
Nice.
Well, I mean, we got like a third of the population of Canada just within a 2-hour radius of your home, right? Yeah. The GTA, and it's funny. I actually opened for Teenage Head a few years back with one of my bands.
Is that right? Oh, I love that band. One of my favorite bands.
Awesome. Yeah, the new documentary is great too.
Oh, I know. I loved it. It was awesome.
Yeah.
So, and I got a question for you, Ryan, but a lot of people don't realize, because people think that musicians are from Toronto, but it's actually a lot of the good ones are from the outskirts of Toronto. They just wind up there because that's where all the action is. So it's good that you guys are from London, and you're saying you're proudly from London. The question I have for you, Ryan, is that this music obviously an awful lot of powerhouse singers from back in that day. You know, if you didn't have a good singer, you typically didn't have a band that would have done anything. Who were some of the guys that you've listened to, and where do you kind of see yourself in that in terms of what your style is?
Heavily influenced by Axl Rose. Obviously, Appetite for Destruction. I'm going to go back to Look What the Cat Dragged In from Poison. Vince Neil was always a big one for me. Steve Perry from Journey was huge. Even, I'll go back. Not that I do a lot of his style, but my old man was a huge Randy Travis fan. And I just always loved that guy's lyrics. So, and the first time I heard that guy's voice, it was probably the coolest thing I'd ever heard. It's not how I sing at all, but he was just like the things he sings about. I always felt like it was so from the heart. So that was a big influence.
Yeah.
Huge Neil Diamond fan. I'm a huge.
Wow, good for you, man. Say it real loud. Good for you.
The Beach Boys, the Beatles. This was all stuff that was just played in my house growing up. And this is sort of how it started for me, was all that real old, great rock and roll. It was funny. My mom was a rock and roller. My dad was a country guy. So I have a real appreciation for both of them.
But you like Donnie Marie then, I guess, eh?
Yeah. Oh my God, my wife loves Donnie Marie. That's hilarious that you say that. Yeah, that's so that gets played around here as well. So yeah, we're the record player still goes all the time around here.
Awesome. Awesome.
So I have one for Eric now. So obviously you were saying you're the main songwriter. Who are some of the, I guess, your influence? I'll throw it out there for me. I write. I've always written. I heard a song today. Nikki Sixx for me is one of my all-time favorite songwriters. Just an amazing lyricist. If you go back and listen to some of the stuff he wrote, it was just like, how can this guy that appears to be so dumb be so brilliant? But who are some of your, some of the people that I guess you would consider an influence as a songwriter?
Oh, geez. I don't know. I basically grew up listening to like pop punk. So
like what?
Well, when I was younger, I listened to like a lot of NoFX and Rancid and stuff. These days, like Screeching Weasel, The Dwarves. So some more like hardcore punk. But as for like songwriting, I listen to a lot of music, and because I've done some recording for some punk stuff before, I guess I always listen really closely to the production of whatever I'm listening to. I'm listening to the drums, wondering how they get those sounds, the guitars, vocals, everything. I really break everything down. So when I sit down to write stuff for us, like I said, I'm usually inspired by, I'm listening to Poison. I'm going to sit down and write a Poison song, and I think about what kind of production did they have for that. And so I guess like that's how that happens. Yeah.
And I gotta say, boys, it's funny. He's an absolute perfectionist. It's awesome. It's so funny. I'll go over and sing with him. And I don't know if you guys remember, have you ever seen the movie La Bamba, the Richie Valens story?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yep.
If you remember the scene where Richie's recording and over and over and over, and the guy, nope. And finally he says, yeah, we got it. And the brother wakes up and he says, 63 takes. He's saying the same thing every time. This is the guy, he'll do that to me. But I always love when we get to the finished product, I'm like, yep, the guy knows what he's doing here. Yeah. So
and that's, you know what, that's important, because you need,
absolutely.
Again, a lot of those records, they still stand up today. The production in my mind still stands up today. But if you go back and you read some of the stories, they work with some heavy hitting producers that actually strip stuff down. And it was like, if you want to be a million record band, this is what you're going to need to do. And it's so important to have somebody in the studio doing that. So kudos to Eric, because it's sometimes people don't want to listen, and to fight for what you're hearing and get what you're hearing recorded, I think is a huge thing.
Yes, when we were doing our ballad on the EP, I was doing some reading about how they got the backup vocal sounds for Def Leppard, because that's just it's such an iconic sound.
Yeah.
And it turns out they use like 128 backing tracks or something. So we ended up doing, I think, like
40 or 50.
I can call Mutt Lang for you if you like. Here's a second. I'll get a hold of him for you.
yeah.
Nice boys.
But yeah, so like doing a little research like that and applying that knowledge really worked out in that case. Like, I mean, I wouldn't quite say it's exactly the same as Def Leppard, but it's cool
But
stuff.
your intention is to play live too. So I mean, you can get caught in that trap where you're just a studio band, you know. And now Def Leppard did it well live. I don't know if you ever saw Def Leppard live or not back in the day, but they, you know, what they did on album, they really replicated it well on stage, which is surprising. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on, and they really did it well on stage. But you're right, to reproduce that live, it was tough. I mean, oh my God, it's tough to be a cover band trying to play Def Leppard stuff. It was tough.
Yeah.
Well, we have so many layers in this stuff that like we're basically gonna have to we have two guitar players, bass player, vocals, and drums. So we're gonna have to pick which two guitar parts you want to do, and we're probably gonna have to play along with backing tracks for the other parts, and play along to a click. But I mean, it's still gonna be live, but you know, there's so much going on that you just physically, unless you want like an 8-man band, it's not doable, which we don't want really.
No. And I'll tell you, I had the opportunity back in the day to open for, I opened for Harum Scarum, I opened for Sven Galley, I mean, list goes on. And the thing that I was always blown away by, you would hear them do their sound check. They could all sing like you wouldn't believe, but everything that was going out front was actually recorded. So, and they played to a click track, and I really locked into that. I thought it was cool. And, you know, that you're saying that you research like that. I think you and I would get along really, really well, because I'm a big junkie when it comes to that type of thing.
Oh yeah.
You know, Stairway to Heaven, John Bonham could not get that first intro to get into. He almost left the studio because he was hearing something different, and stuff like that just fascinates me. So it's cool that you're doing that, because that's how you learn, right?
Yep.
I actually read a great story the other day, going back to the 70s. I was reading about Tom Schultz in Boston, and how they put that first album together, and it's a pretty neat story. And then how they actually shopped it to a couple of record companies that told them to piss off. This blows my mind that somebody told them, they heard that and were like, nope, we don't want this.
Can you imagine?
Oh, some guy lost his job for sure. Like, yeah, how these guys finally were like, this is awesome. And then they brought them to a show and were like, hey, play this for the execs. Can you guys make this sound like this live? And Boston made that sound like that live. And that's pretty impressive. I got to think back now, like what we have today that we can work with is pretty impressive. But for them to be able to do that back in the day, it just blows my mind.
Yeah.
Well, the fact that we can Google it, we can Google how they did that shit back then. They didn't have that opportunity. They didn't have that technology. They had to kind of wing it, you know, like trial and error. I mean, you can look up and see who the producer was, what he used, how many backing vocals, 128 backing vocals. You never knew back then, right?
No.
And to have to cut tape if you want to splice different vocal takes, that's just insane. Like, it's so much easier today.
Well, I will tell you, Ryan, you mentioned the Appetite for Destruction a bunch of times. Mm-hmm. That was the very last record that was ever done where they actually physically cut the tape. And their album is called, they've got an autobiography. I can't remember what it's called, but it talks about that album, and it's pretty cool the way they did it. I mean, they were going to not have Steven Adler play on the record, and Slash didn't play he played with a Les Paul copy. And I mean, just some of the stuff, it's just so cool to hear, right?
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. I can't remember the name of the book either, but I have read it, and just hearing the stories of where Slash played, and I set up, and, you know, I put this microphone here and all that. It's awesome. It's pretty impressive. It's old school rock and roll, and it's I love it and I miss it.
Yeah.
Like, it's like going back to the old story, you know, Jim Morrison sitting in the bathroom with the microphone. I love that story. That's a great story. And I'm sure there's 10 million of those out there.
No, for sure.
Tell me this, guys. So post-pandemic bullshit, blah, 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 blah. What's going to go on for Turbosnake?
Well, we're finishing up our second EP right now. It's going to be double the offering of the first one. So our first was 3. This is going to be 6.
Yep.
And then, like I said, we're going to be doing, another at least 5, maybe 6 songs, and put them all together into one, like 14, 15 song full-length album, and then ideally shop it around, get ready for our live show. I want some like crazy light show, like synced lights and everything for when we play live. So there's a lot of things we're going to be doing over the next few months for sure.
Well, what I'd like to do, and like I say, if you have, if you can send me electronic copies of your songs, I'd be happy to get them to John at RFL. There's another fella who has been on our show before, and he's a good friend of ours. His name's Junior Leclerc, and he does promotion for the Rock Pile.
I know Junior.
And do you know Junior?
Yep.
Yeah, you need to hit him up because I tell you that man is he's a beast, and he's
connected.
You know, I've never seen a guy promote live music as much as him, and he's just he's ready for it to come back, and it'll be great when it does.
That's funny. I also play in a Guns N' Roses tribute band, and we play up in Toronto quite a bit. And I've had the very distinct honor of meeting Junior several times, and he's introduced our band, and he's talk about a guy with some great rock and roll stories, man. That,
oh my gosh!
I could sit there and drink beers with that guy all weekend.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just you know, that guy, class act right there, the salt of the earth.
No, he is for sure. He's got roots in Prince Edward Island. I don't know if you knew that or not, but that's where his mother is. So that was kind of neat.
Nice. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Well, here's what we're gonna do, guys. We're gonna get some Turbosnake stuff, like whatever you have already. And I apologize, I really honestly didn't get a chance to listen to any stuff ahead of time. I think Sean did, but we're getting some stuff.
I did for sure.
On the show, and anything else that you guys are doing, we really want to help you promote it because this is kind of what we do. We want to bring live music back. I love what you're talking about. This is Sean's done our era. We did it. We were 87 and forward. That's what we did, and it's great to see a resurgence and your just your belief, your love for that, your passion for that style of music. You know, that will sell again because you're right. It was positive. It was upbeat. It was a good message. That's what we all need right now. It's a good message.
Hey guys, we really appreciate you guys doing this for us, and really awesome to talk to you guys. Cheers up. Sean, Dave, thank you guys very much for everything.
Well, and I will say, I'm glad we did this because, you know, there was a couple misfires, but please get me your stuff because the second I have it, I'll send it to John.
Yeah.
And I think what you're doing is great, man. When Carrie sent me the link to the first tune, I was like, holy friggin' crap. Like, it's good that somebody actually is trying to, you know, jump on board and do that. So good on you, boys. And as soon as we get it, that's where it's going.
Awesome, boys. Hey,
thanks a lot.
Merry Christmas, fellas.
Hey, Merry Christmas.
You as well, boys.
Cheers, guys.
Just like now.
All right.
Give a little hat on here. Look. There you go.
There it is.
Yes. Looking good. Looking good.
Yeah.
And you know, it's cool that you're not trying to replicate it, but you're just trying to make it more mainstream, relevant. 2020, 80s rock, and we love it. That's perfect.
Right on.
All right.
You notice that he's like Columbo, right? You think you're going to be gone? He asks her one more question.
That's all good.
Thanks, boys.
Thank you.
Hey, Sean, Dave, thanks, guys.
All right. Take
We'll
care,
be in
guys.
touch. Don't forget to send me that. Don't forget to send me that stuff, Eric.
We will. I'll send it as soon as we get off here.
You bet, buddy.
Merry
Thank you.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Ciao.
Have a
All
good
right,
night,
guys.
boys.
Peace
Cheers.
out.